Well, welcome back to our radio show. It's been a while. Last time I think was at the Rock Fest, but we did many interview, and you always been generous with me at Prescription Punk Rock. So thank you. And for people that don't recognize you, who the hell are you?
My name's Russ Rankin.
Russ, welcome to the show. I remember clearly your first solo tour with Tony Sly. I was there in Quebec. We did an interview there in person, and I remember that you were pretty nervous about it because you said, it's my first round. I see Tony Sly going, and I don't have the experience, being alone. Fast forward today, you release your second album last Friday, and it's such a great record.
Thank you.
How you felt about it, and how you feel now about doing solo stuff.
Definitely more comfortable than that last time with Tony. That was brand new for me. It was great. It was a good experience. So I've definitely been since then. I've played a lot of shows and have a little bit better idea of what to do, I think. And yeah, I've really enjoyed getting a chance to play these kind of shows because it's a different type of connection with the audience. I found myself a lot of times being able to talk about what songs are about, or a little bit of a backstory to a song, or even have a back and forth with people in the audience. It's a different experience than playing with a live band. So I really enjoy it. I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
You're right. You're right. People are maybe more quiet and more into the show. And like you said, when it came to solo records, it's you alone. So in a way, you really concentrate on the lyrics and everything. So it's cool to see the connection because it's like you said, it's a different thing than playing with Good Riddance, and it's a connection with the scene, and the fans that follow you for many years, and people that maybe are not into Good Riddance, but really love, the solo records.
Yeah, I wonder if there's anybody like that. I wonder if people are just stumbling onto the solo album and have no idea who I am. That would be pretty interesting to find out. I just always assumed that it would be people that were already fans, but maybe not.
I went to a coffee shop in Quebec, and the guy were playing your first records. I think it was released something in 2012,
Yeah.
if I'm right. And he was not into Good Riddance. He knew Good Riddance. He heard a
Okay.
couple of songs, but he was really not into Good Riddance. And he said the same thing about Joey Cape. He said, I really love his solo records, but I'm not into Lagwagon. So I think, yeah, there's people that love that. It bring a kind of folk spirit or getting back to the roots of music.
Yeah, I think it's a cool way to experience if you like a songwriter, like it's a different side of them, and maybe some different aspects of what they bring come out in that music that maybe get buried a little bit more when you're layering it in with guitars and bass and drums. So I think there's a little bit more of can be more of a storyteller aspect to it, which me as a music fan, like I love going to see artists when they talk about the songs more, whether it's Billy Bragg or Frank Turner, or like I like to hear about the songs, like what were you thinking when I wrote, what were they thinking when they wrote this, and what was going on, or what's the song about, things that in a live show with a band there's not always that much time for. So I really love that. It's one of my favorite things about going to see solo artists.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. For me, the lyrics is very important. I remember kids, I was taking the bus to buy a CD and I was reading the lyrics in the bus. And then, it gets you an idea of, like you said, maybe where the state of mind where people were when they created. And in a way, people interpret it differently. The emotion are different. And to share that, it's the magic of music.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I'm fascinated by where songs come from. So I love watching music documentaries or documentaries about the making of certain albums. And I, even if I don't even like the band, like just because the whole process fascinates me, I still always watch those and take something from it. And I just love hearing those stories, or about what it was like recording or writing this particular song, or how did this song start? Like, did a line of lyric come first, or just those things fascinate me. Just trying to figure out, as I try to become a songwriter myself, just trying to figure out what other songwriters do that I look up to, or that I admire, and like finding out what works for them.
Yeah, and a good example is Weight of the World. I didn't know where, the movie line were from. And I watched The Live recently. It blew my mind. And if I would ask you in the past where it came from, you would say, watch the movie. And you watch the movie. It's way more than just writing lyrics. It's the influence and, like you said, what's behind it. And it brings a lot more to culture when people are curious about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love all that stuff. The story behind the story, so to speak.
So, with the first records that you release, is it more easy now to write songs? And, was it more hard to do the second record, or was it more easy because of the experience?
For the solo thing, it was definitely easier. I think that the first album, I really didn't know what I was doing. I was just learning how to play acoustic guitar, because I could play electric guitar. Like, I can play Johnny Ramone chords and write Good Riddance songs, and then show them to Luke, and then he plays them, 8,000 times better. And then that's what I knew how to do, but I didn't know how to play acoustic guitar properly with like full chords and all the right finger positions and stuff. So I was just learning to do that when I did my first album, and I went to the studio, and my good friend Paul Miner, who produced and engineered with me, like, he hadn't done a solo album either. So we both were sort of just figuring it out as we went along. And the first song we've tracked was the first song on the album, Pushing Daisies. And when we finally got done, we were like, oh, that sounds pretty good. Like, we had an acoustic on one side, we had like a little electric guitar on the other side, we had some hand percussion, and then Paul would throw in these little piano melodies. And then we just sort of stuck with that formula the rest of the way through. And I thought it worked really well. I thought we came up with for the first time, and neither of us knowing what we are doing, I thought it's a really strong album. And
Yeah.
this time around, I knew had more of a fully formed idea of how I wanted it to sound, and I kind of had an idea just based on the experience of how to get that. And so this one was easier for me to sort of, in my head, formulate a vision of what I wanted the finished product to be like, based on my experience with the first album, and also other things that I listened to, other artists. So it was a little bit easier for me to picture in my head how to put it all together.
Do you listen to a lot of artists and music when you write the records, or you try to, step a little side, not to be too influenced?
I don't really make a decision. I actually haven't even thought about that. I probably listen to the same amount of music, but I'm not listening to anything specifically for inspiration. I'm more just listening to my normal music habits, which is a lot of stuff from the 1980s, and punk and hardcore from the late 70s and early 80s. And then I listen to a lot of like first wave, like early 80s alternative music. And maybe that somehow informs what I'm writing, but generally I'm not listening to anything specifically to become inspired. For me, it's especially in a project like this, where I had no songs, and then Stefan really wanted me to do an album, and I agreed to do it, and then I started writing for this album. And so it was all written in a pretty short amount of time. And for me, when I get if I'm working on writing, whether it's this or my band, the first song is the hardest, like getting over that first thing. And then once the first song is done, usually the first one or two songs, it just starts to flow for me. uh, and I just make sure I pick up my guitar every single day. and try to get something done. And then the cool thing about songwriting is you can always go back in and change or tweak or edit. And so the important thing is to just keep playing and keep coming up with stuff. And even if it never makes it on the album, it's still it serves the process, I think.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You're right. People say I throw that song on the garbage, but with that song you wrote another riff and another thing. So you're right. It's kind of, putting the puzzle together.
I think that some people really struggle with songwriting, but when they get the good one, it's really good. Some people it comes easily too. Like I've always had a pretty easy time with it. It's just a matter of uh, for me, I just have to make myself pick up my guitar every day, even if I don't feel like it, even if I don't feel inspired, and then just put on a hockey game or something and just bang on my guitar, and then sooner or later, like something comes up, and I'm like, oh, that sounded cool. Like, what comes after that, and then pretty soon I've got a song. And so for me, it's about putting in the work, like just playing the guitar every single day, and then
It's
trusting that the process will happen the way it's supposed to.
it's really a discipline that you put on yourself to, like you said, just roll every day, and just if it's good, it's good. It's not too bad.
And that's what I do. I don't know that I can afford to just sit around and wait to be inspired. I think I have to. It's like it's one of those things, like what comes first, the inspiration or the actual application of it. And so for me, I feel like luck is the residue of hard work. Like if I'm playing my guitar every day for a certain amount of hours, my chances of stumbling across something or creating something that I think is cool improves. So
And we're such in a different era than when you started up with Good Riddance, where you rush yourself in the studio and do a record in a weekend. I think there's way less stress now because of course there's curses blessing records behind you, but it's not a lot money involved in the process that stress everybody out. Things have changed a lot. People are more DIY. They do it from their home, and with the pandemic, it kind of everybody's doing that right now.
yeah. Well, there's a lot more avenues for people to demo and record without a studio. Just need a computer with some good software, and then you can also collaborate with your bandmates without being in the same state or country. Like it's pretty cool. It's definitely not a substitute for the traditional way, I think, yet. But for me, as a songwriter, it definitely makes things easier. Like I can knock out demos and put them in Dropbox and share them with whoever, and or with Good Riddance, I can record a whole song in Logic with guitars, drums, bass, guitar leads, vocals, vocal melodies, harmonies, background vocals. So instead of sending my bandmates a riff, they get to hear like this is what I think the whole song would sound like, and then they get to go, oh, cool, I kind of see that, and then they can have input like, what about if we did this there? But they have the whole picture to go from. So those are those are that's technology that didn't exist, like you said, when we first started.
Like you send it through mail back in the days, and it get like 4 days later. Okay, I got it,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
later. But that's the thing, I think that you have to take the positive side about the technology and everything. There's a bad side, of course. With social media, we see a lot
mm,
of hate right now, but I think that you have to change it to something positive, and I think that's what you did with the last record too.
yeah. Absolutely, it's what you make of it, right? You can use this
And
power for good or for evil, and so what are we going to do?
you're right. And people are in need of that. I think the timing of the release is perfect because, yes, people listen way more to music because they work from home and they have more times, and, they're more aware of what's happening. So it's pretty cool, and they need that. The emotion is so weird right now. And it's everywhere in Quebec, and I'm sure in the US is the same thing, a lot
Yeah,
of division.
Yeah.
So it's a weird question. What you gonna do with the records? There's not much show here in Quebec, of course, but I think in the U.S. It started up slowly. So is there gonna be a tour? I was gonna be think.
So I have a booking agent, which I'd never had before, and so she's going to be focused on keeping me pretty busy. I really want to play as much as I can. Like when the first album came out, I didn't really pursue it. I would play once in a while when people asked me. I really want to try to get out and play shows more. So with a booking agent, I'm trying to like get out and maybe like for instance in April, where I'm gonna fly to the East Coast and play a handful of shows up there, you know, around New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and then kind of try to do the same thing around parts of the United States, like maybe go to Florida and play a handful of shows, Texas, maybe the Great Lakes area, like Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, around there. And then also obviously California, maybe the Northwest too, like Seattle, Portland, Vancouver. I'd love to play, you know, in Quebec and Ontario. So just depend, like, but I can't really go on a tour. I can fly someplace, rent a car, and like play, you know, 4 or 5 shows, and then go home. And then in March I'm going to Europe to play. So I'm hoping that this year things keep opening up a little bit, and it goes back to like it was last spring and summer, where we were able to play shows. The winter time, everything shut down again. Same up there, and so hopefully, if the trend continues, the spring and summer will be a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think so. I'm stay positive, but I think the worst is behind us right now. And yeah, we can't wait to see you around Quebec. You know, there always been a huge love affair with you and Quebec, the whole Quebec. You know, every time you came, you have so much fans, and the whole Canada. You know, you
Mhm.
always been great with everyone. I remember when you did like the backing vocal on "What You Did That" on "Comeback Kid," and I spoke to
Yeah,
Andrew, and he said not really nice word about the good record.
I love Canada. So and we've always had my band's always been treated well up there. We have a pretty deep connection. You know, our bass player married a girl from Quebec, and it's just a yeah. I mean, the hockey thing. Like I love that I could go on tour up there and I could talk hockey with anybody at the show. And it's pretty cool. We've always been treated great in Canada and Quebec, and yeah, I love it.
People hate me because I love the Sens here. It's all about Canadian, but I was born to love the Nordiques, and since I love the Nordic, I love Ottawa, and I love a lot of teams that beat the Canadian.
Yeah, well, it's probably a good time to not be a Habs fan right now.
No, it's not going good. But it's the problem with Montreal is there's so much pressure from the journalists,
Yeah,
and that's a huge problem for the players and the fans. You
yeah,
know,
yep. I believe it. But
pressure that
when they're playing well, it's great. But
yeah.
when they're not playing well, they don't want to leave their house probably.
I remember a couple of years ago, every time they win, it's the Stanley Cup in Montreal. People go
Yeah,
nuts.
yeah,
Whoa, calm down.
yeah.
So, Russ, thank you. Seriously. I repeat myself, you've always been generous with me in the radio show. We love the new records. We're going to play a lot of songs from it. And congratulations. We play some song like last Monday, and the reaction is amazing.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
So before we leave, Chuck got a huge accident, and we saw him. He got home. How is it right now? I know he's on recovery.
He's doing really well. His recovery is right on schedule. He's in good spirits, and he appreciates all the kind wishes and everybody rooting for him. He's gonna be fine, and like I said, his recovery is going either as scheduled or maybe even a little bit ahead of schedule. So we're all really happy that he's all right, and and doing well. Thank you for asking.
Thank you so much, and have a great recovery, Chuck. And thank you too. I did many interview with him. He's a great dude. Can't wait to see Good Riddance too. It was a huge bummer, the Puzza 2020. We got
Yeah,
hit with the COVID and no Puzza.
yeah. But this time we're gonna go. So
Yes, yeah, yeah. We really hope. There was festival last summer, so we hoping for that. Russ, thank you for your time. Have a blast, with the shows, and we're gonna wait for you in Quebec. And thank you, my friend. Thank you for your time.
thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bye, bye, Russ.
Take care, man.
Cheers.